Viewer discretion is advised, as this story has been presented without any alterations to preserve its original context.
He had ejaculated too much, and I couldn't keep swallowing anymore. It was just too much for me to handle. A few drops of escaped my lips as I fought to hold it in any longer. And instead of stopping there, he pulled away from me and continued to suck on my body. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years since I last saw Mark. We were just kids then, clueless and carefree. The time flies, doesn't it? Now, looking back, those days seem like a lifetime ago. Honestly, it's probably been even longer for him. He's probably moved on by now, found someone new, started a whole new chapter in his life. And who knows? He might even have a girlfriend already. It's the natural progression of things, right? As for me, I haven't had any boyfriends since our last encounter. Not one. Sometimes, I wonder if it's because I never truly moved on from Mark. Maybe I loved him more than I realized back then. I don't know. But here I am, still single after all these years. Around this time, Friendster was all the rage in the Philippines. It was like Facebook before Facebook existed, and everyone was obsessed with it. I decided to check if Mark had a profile there, just out of curiosity. To my surprise, he did. Of course, at that point, I still didn't know about his girlfriend situation. But even if I had known, I wouldn't have expected him to come back to me anyway. I simply wanted to be friends, you know? It was more about catching up with him and seeing how his life was going since we hadn't spoken in 3 years. When I found Mark's profile, he looked so different. He had matured a lot, but still retained that undeniable handsomeness that made him stand out. When he accepted my friend request, it felt like old times again. We started talking about our plans for college, and he told me he wanted to study at the same one I was aiming for, the biggest and most popular university in our city. He also mentioned he'd be staying in a boarding house because his family lived a couple of hours away from the university, which made sense since my parents would likely do the same thing. As we talked more, we became close friends again. It felt so natural, like no time had passed at all. Of course, I didn't know about his girlfriend back then. To be honest, I understand why he wouldn't tell me. We were just cousins or friends, after all. Why would he feel the need to share every detail of his life with me? He wasn't obligated to do so, and it wouldn't have been right for me to demand that from him. But even though I didn't know about his girlfriend, I was still excited to start college and see him in person again. We were both accepted into the university, and time flew by as we finished high school. Throughout those last few years, we kept chatting online like close friends. One day, I jokingly told him that I missed him so much, cousin, saying it in a light-hearted way to tease him. He laughed about it and replied that he missed me too, cousin. In my heart, I still felt that spark, that flutter of excitement whenever we chatted. I don't know if he felt the same way, but it was like butterflies were doing somersaults in my stomach every time I saw his name pop up on my Friendster feed. Ironically, we both decided to take nursing as our college course. Fast forward to enrollment day, and there was an entrance exam at the university. We met again after a long time, and wow, had he grown. He was so tall now. I never expected him to be that high. He must have been around 5 feet and 11 inches, towering over me since I only came up to his chest. When I saw him, I felt this sudden shyness wash over me, like a blush creeping up my cheeks. It felt weird because it was as if I were seeing my crush all over again. Even though he was just my cousin, those feelings for him seemed to have intensified, and it left me feeling confused and flustered. After we finished the exam, we decided to look for a boarding house together. We figured since we both lived far from campus, it would be easier to share one. Plus, we could keep each other company, right? It was like old times again, walking side by side, talking about random things, and laughing at inside jokes. But this time, there was an undercurrent of something more, a tension I couldn't quite put my finger on. As we walked, I stole glances at him, admiring how handsome he had become. And in those moments, I felt the butterflies return, fluttering their wings even faster than before. I really wanted us to stay in the same room, just like when we were 13 years old. It would have felt so nostalgic, a throwback to our innocent days of shared laughter and secrets. But my parents and Mark's mom weren't too keen on the idea. They insisted that since we were all grown up now, it was best for us to stay in separate rooms. However, there was a twist to the story. The boarding house where we planned to stay was fully booked, except for one room, and it was the most expensive one. With no other options available, my parents and Mark's mother decided to let us share a room. A room just like old times. In their minds, since we were cousins, they trusted us to behave ourselves. Oh, how wrong they were! Little did they know about the unspoken feelings I had for him. The emotions that simmered beneath the surface, hidden from their view. A sly smile crept across my face as I thought about it. Trust! They didn't even realize what was brewing between us. So there we were, reunited once again in the same room after 3 years of separation. We had finally made it, and I couldn't have been happier. But just as we settled down, ready for a night of reminiscing and shared stories, the owner of the boarding house showed up. He informed us that male and female tenants weren't allowed to share a room. Our hearts sank. All our efforts had gone in vain. But wait, there was still hope. We already paid the caretaker who handled bookings for the area, and she couldn't do anything about it anymore. Plus, our parents had called the homeowner earlier, explaining that we were cousins and practically siblings, since we had been sharing rooms since high school. They assured him we wouldn't cause any trouble, which seemed to put his mind at ease. With a mix of relief and excitement, I settled back in, ready for a night filled with laughter, secrets, and the exhilarating thrill of being so close to Mark again. After all that drama with the owner and caretaker, I felt a huge sense of relief, knowing that nobody would judge us for staying together now. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I could finally relax and enjoy Mark's company without any worries or doubts. That night, as we were about to sleep, I couldn't help but feel a bit strange. I mean, it had been 3 years since we last saw each other, and in those years, I hadn't moved on romantically with anyone else. Yet Mark never made a single move towards any kind of intimate moment. For some reason, instead of feeling disappointed, I felt strangely comforted by this. He was still the same respectful guy I knew from high school, which only strengthened my feelings for him. It gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, he might feel the same way too. As 3 more days passed, nothing changed. Mark continued to treat me like a close friend, never pushing for anything more than friendly conversation and shared meals. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and ask him directly if he missed our encounters from high school. He confessed that, yes, he did miss them, but then added that we couldn't do it anymore. My confusion grew. and I pressed him further, asking why not. We're cousins, Mark explained to me. We can't continue what we were doing before, even though I really loved and missed it. Then, as if to emphasize his point, he kissed me on the forehead. A tender, innocent gesture that made my heart ache even more. He didn't linger. Instead, he turned away and went straight to bed, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. I felt so violated, broken, and shattered into a million pieces. Yet, in some twisted way, I respected his decision, if that's truly how he felt about me. Mark was special to me. I loved him deeply, but it broke my heart knowing I wasn't as special to him as I wanted to be. That night, I was unable to sleep. The pain of unrequited love gnawed at my soul. My mind kept replaying his words and actions, each memory adding another layer of hurt to my already broken spirit. At 3, Mark noticed that I was still awake. He asked me why, and in a moment of raw honesty, I poured out my heart to him. I'm broken, I confessed, tears welling up in my eyes. And I think I love you. Finally, he admitted the truth. He already had a girlfriend who was still in high school, a year younger than himself. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt as if the world around me crumbled into dust. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I couldn't speak, couldn't even utter a single word to express the agony tearing through me. Sensing my pain, Mark hugged me tightly. At that moment, all I wanted was for him to hold me close and tell me everything would be all right. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. He had made his choice. He had chosen her over me, and as much as it hurt, I had to respect his decision. It was clear that our paths were diverging, and there was nothing more for us here. But then, in a surprising turn of events, he kissed me on the lips and whispered softly, I don't want to see you crying. It hurts me too. He admitted that, honestly, he also loved me, but had stopped himself because he knew it was wrong. Hearing those words made my heart ache even more, yet I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing he was doing the right thing by choosing to do what was right instead of giving in to his feelings for me. As tears continued to stream down my face, he held me close and kissed me again. In that moment, it felt as if we were both letting go of the pain of unrequited love. We should move on, I thought to myself, but before I could even finish the thought, I found myself responding with a kiss of my own. Soon, our lips were locked in a passionate embrace, and memories of our past encounters from high school flooded back into my mind. But then he pushed me away, his expression filled with a mixture of pain and determination. Stop, he pleaded. I have a girlfriend. He confessed that he was attracted to me now more than ever before because I seemed so mature and ladylike compared to when we were in high school. In fact, he admitted he wanted to sleep with me, but the guilt of betraying his girlfriend's trust held him back. Yes, I understand, I replied, my voice trembling with emotion. But I just can't accept it. All this time I thought you were single, and I never even considered that you might have a girlfriend. My heart was shattered, but I knew I had to be strong and move on. Please help me move on instead, I pleaded. He took a deep breath and asked, how can I help you move on? What can I do for you? In that moment, all I wanted was to forget about the pain of rejection and pretend that everything was as it used to be. But deep down, I knew that moving on wouldn't be easy. It would take time, effort, and a whole lot of emotional strength to overcome this heartbreak and find happiness again. After a moment of silence, I blurted out the question that had been plaguing my mind. Can we be intimate one last time? It would help me accept that this is our final goodbye. Mark's reply was hesitant, but ultimately understanding. If it's the only way for you to move on, then maybe we should try it, he said. But there's a catch. He didn't feel comfortable having sex with me right now. I respected his decision and replied, okay, I understand. I'll respect your feelings. Let's just sleep. He kissed me softly as a gesture of gratitude before heading back to his bed. A heavy silence descended upon the room, broken only by our labored breathing. 30 minutes later, however, things took an unexpected turn. The back of my bed started to move, and I felt Mark's hands tracing patterns on my skin. He kissed me all over my body while removing my clothes. It was a sensation that sent shivers down my spine. His actions were so intense, yet gentle, that I couldn't help but surrender to his touch. In the heat of the moment, I reached for his pants and unzipped them with an eagerness I hadn't felt in years. As he released himself, I was taken aback by how much he had grown. His penis now stretched out like a magnificent work of art, far longer than it used to be back in our high school days. Back then, it was only around 5 inches long. Now, it seemed closer to 6.5 or even 7 inches. The memory of all those stolen moments from our past rushed through my mind as I wrapped my arms around him, pulling him close. This time, there were no regrets, no fear, only the raw passion and desire that had always burned between us. In that moment, it felt like nothing else mattered, except for the two of us, lost in each other's embrace. My hands trembled with excitement, turning ice cold from the anticipation of taking him in my mouth once more. It had been years since I had tasted him, and the memory sent a thrill through me. As I took him into my mouth, I couldn't help but think, I really love this guy. But we can't do this forever. This should be our last time together, a final farewell to the passion that had consumed us in the past. With every suck and swallow, my heart filled with bittersweet emotions. The taste of him was as familiar and comforting as ever, yet knowing it was our last time made each sensation even more intense. He climaxed soon after, and I kept going, trying to please him one last time. But his pleasure overwhelmed me. He had ejaculated too much, and I couldn't keep swallowing anymore. It was just too much for me to handle. A few drops of sperm escaped my lips as I fought to hold it in any longer. And instead of stopping there, he pulled away from me and continued to suck on my body, whispering words of affection into my ear before moving down to lick my nipples and eventually reach my clit. It felt like we were reliving our past encounters all over again. The same passion, the same longing, the same undeniable connection. We became addicted to each other once more, engaging in passionate lovemaking 2 to 3 times a day. It was heaven on earth, filled with pleasure and contentment. Mark even went as far as buying me pills to prevent pregnancy, ensuring that our secret rendezvous remained undiscovered. We had an unspoken agreement, no strings attached, just pure enjoyment of each other's company. But all good things must come to an end. Eventually, his girlfriend visited him for the first time at the boarding house. Her jaw dropped when she realized I was Mark's partner in crime. We both quickly covered up by insisting that we were cousins. A believable lie, considering our history together, and the fact that we looked similar enough to be related. Her disbelief turned into anger, prompting her to question the homeowner about our relationship. Fortunately, the homeowner confirmed that we were indeed cousins, easing her suspicions and allowing her to trust us as family. She agreed to stay for just one night before leaving, a temporary solution until she could figure out what to do next. That night, sleep evaded me like a cruel joke. Every little noise they made sent a jolt of pain through my heart. The whispers, the laughter, the rustle of sheets, all served as painful reminders of what I was missing out on, and I could never have again. Jealousy gnawed at my soul. It felt like a betrayal to everything we had shared in those secret moments together. I strained to make out their conversation through the hushed tones, but their words were too muffled for me to understand clearly. All I could gather was that they mentioned my name. The girl saying something about how I was already asleep. That's when I decided to play along and pretend I was slumbering peacefully, even though my mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. The room was dark, but a faint glimmer of moonlight filtered in through a crack in the curtains, casting long shadows across their intertwined bodies. Their silhouettes were clear enough for me to see them locked in an embrace, their limbs entangled in a passionate dance that tore at my insides. Every breath I took felt like shards of glass cutting into my lungs as I watched them reveling in each other's company. The very sight of their happiness mocking my own secret pain. Why did I feel this way? After all, I was just his cousin. Nothing more than a convenient outlet for his desires when his girlfriend wasn't around. And yet, seeing him with her ignited a fire of jealousy within me that threatened to consume me whole. It felt so wrong, so twisted. My heart ached as if it had been ripped from my chest and left to rot on the cold floor. I could hear their moans mingled with the creaking of the bed as they moved together in a rhythm both sensual and agonizingly familiar. Mark was doing everything to her that he had once done to me. Kissing, touching, caressing, sucking, biting. He even let her suck him back, mirroring our past encounters with an eerie accuracy that made my stomach churn. The scene unfolded before my eyes, each detail a painful reminder of what I had lost and could never reclaim. At that moment, disgust washed over me like a tidal wave. It was as if all the emotions I'd been bottling up, love, pain, jealousy, anger, had finally erupted in an uncontrollable torrent of self-loathing. The sight of Mark with his girlfriend was too much to bear. It shattered any remaining illusions I had about us ever being anything more than cousins who occasionally shared a bed together in the name of forbidden pleasure. I didn't want to talk to Mark, not after what I had witnessed. Seeing him with his girlfriend sent a chill down my spine. It was as if all our stolen moments together meant nothing now that he had found love elsewhere. They had sex not just once, but 3 times throughout the night. Each instance, a painful reminder of the intimacy we used to share and could never recapture again. I counted their encounters, unable to sleep in the face of such agony, and felt my heart break anew with every thrust, every moan, every touch. I was angry, furious even, at how easily he had moved on and embraced this new relationship, while I remained trapped in a web of unspoken emotions, pretending everything was okay. But what other choice did I have? Pretending to be oblivious was the only way to keep up appearances and maintain a semblance of normalcy within our twisted little arrangement. By 10, I had managed to drift off into an uneasy sleep, only to be awakened by someone knocking on the door. The homeowner was checking if Mark's girlfriend had left yet. It seemed she was still fully naked in bed next to him, fast asleep. "Not yet," I replied curtly, warning them again about the rules before leaving us to our own devices once more. In a flurry of movement, they both scrambled to get dressed, their bodies bumping into each other as they hastily pulled on clothes. Mark's face went pale with shock when he caught my eye. His expression betrayed him, revealing the guilt and discomfort he felt at being discovered in such an intimate situation. I couldn't bring myself to look back at him. Pretending everything was fine became a monumental task. His girlfriend, however, seemed innocent and oblivious to the tension between us. Her treatment of me had been kind and sisterly, offering a level of affection I hadn't experienced before. Since I never knew what it felt like to have a sibling, I cherished this newfound connection. As for Mark, his presence was now tainted with jealousy and resentment, emotions that burned within me, threatening to consume any lingering feelings of love or fondness I might have had left for him. With her departure, the boarding house returned to its original inhabitants. Just Mark and me. The silence between us felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and unspoken desires. It was a stark reminder of our complicated relationship. Cousins who shared a bed, lovers who couldn't be together, and friends who were bound by a secret that threatened to destroy everything we had built. A heavy silence settled between us, a testament to our complicated relationship and the unspoken emotions that simmered beneath the surface. Mark knew I was mad at him. It was evident in my every glance, every curt word. But deep down, I couldn't help but feel guilty for being angry with him. In reality, he wasn't the one to blame. It was me who should be fuming. I had been foolish enough to fall into this trap of forbidden love, and now found myself caught in a web of jealousy and resentment. So I decided to swallow my pride and act as if nothing had happened. After all, dwelling on the past wouldn't do any good. We needed to move forward, even if it meant pretending everything was normal between us. I started talking about mundane things, like what we should eat for lunch or dinner. Anything to break the tension that had built up around us. As our conversation flowed, I couldn't resist bringing up the topic of moving on. I needed to find a boyfriend and put an end to this twisted triangle once and for all. At least in theory. To my surprise, Mark agreed. He even suggested that finding someone new might be the best way to get over him. It was a strange moment of shared understanding. We both knew what it meant to lose ourselves in each other's arms. But now it was time to let go and find happiness elsewhere. Or so we thought. And just like that, our intimate moments came to an abrupt halt. I threw myself into the task of moving on, focusing my energy on finding a new love interest instead of dwelling on Mark's presence in my life. It didn't take long for me to catch someone's eye on Friendster. We hit it off instantly, and he quickly swept me off my feet. He courted me online, and I couldn't help but accept his advances. As our relationship blossomed into something more tangible, it felt like a breath of fresh air after the turmoil that had been Mark and I. But even as I basked in the glow of this newfound romance, there was an underlying sense of dissonance. While things seemed normal on the surface, deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling that my heart truly belonged elsewhere. With Mark, we continued to live together, sharing a room and many late-night conversations about life, love, and everything in between. He became more than just a friend. He was like a confidant, someone who understood me better than anyone else. When I finally took the plunge and had sex with my new boyfriend, it felt like a milestone. But I couldn't help but feel that something was missing. Later on, I confessed everything to Mark. How much happier I felt when I was with him. How his presence filled the void left by my other relationship. He listened intently as I shared my deepest thoughts and feelings, finally revealing the truth about my heart's true desires. In a moment of vulnerability, I admitted that even though I had found someone new, there was still Mark who held my affections. "Why me?" he asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. "You mean you still love me more than your boyfriend?" I nodded slowly, unable to deny the truth any longer. "More likely, yes," I whispered. "I don't feel the same excitement with him as I do when I'm with you." After confessing my true feelings to Mark, his face softened, and he slowly leaned closer to me. "You know what?" he whispered. "Actually, that's exactly how I feel about my girlfriend, too." A mischievous grin spread across his face as he added, "I think I love you more." In a whirlwind of emotions, we found ourselves drawn together once again. Out of the blue, our lips met in a passionate kiss. It was weird, almost surreal, but undeniably electrifying. It was then that we realized the undeniable truth. We were both head over heels for each other, and nothing could stand in the way of our love anymore. That night, Mark and I couldn't resist indulging in our desires. We ended up having sex 4 times. My knees were shaking from all the writhing and pleasure seeking I was doing to make sure he felt as good as possible. It was an exhilarating experience that left me breathless and craving more. The intensity of our passion had only grown stronger, fueled by the newfound realization of our true feelings for one another. As we lay together after the fourth round, a sense of urgency washed over me. "Just so you know," I confessed to Mark, "I stopped taking the pills when your girlfriend visited here last time. I had sex with you and my boyfriend without them." My voice trembled slightly as I admitted, "I'm afraid that I might be pregnant." Mark's eyes widened in disbelief. "You what?" "You didn't use any protection," he explained, his voice laced with concern. "But you also slept with your boyfriend without the pills, right?" He seemed genuinely shocked by my revelation, as if the possibility of me having unprotected sex with him had never crossed his mind before. I nodded, a mischievous glint in my eye. "But I slept with you more times than with my boyfriend without protection," I admitted, relishing the thought of how much he must be enjoying this newfound information. We were both worried about the possibility of pregnancy, but I still took the pill that morning, just in case it would somehow work its magic and prevent any unwanted surprises. As we lay there together, wrapped up in each other's arms, a sense of excitement mixed with fear filled our hearts. The uncertainty surrounding my potential pregnancy only added to the thrill of our forbidden love affair. We were both taking a huge risk by indulging in this secret passion, but somehow it felt worth every ounce of worry and anxiety. A month had passed since we'd reignited our passionate affair, stealing intimate moments whenever and wherever we could in the boarding house. Yet something wasn't right. My period was late, and fear gnawed at my insides. We couldn't ignore it any longer. A pregnancy test confirmed our worst nightmare. I was pregnant. With no other choice, I had to withdraw from school and return home. The news of my sudden departure left everyone bewildered, especially my mother, who questioned the identity of the father. She suspected something was going on between Mark and me, but I vehemently denied it without giving it a second thought. Little did she know that her suspicions were spot on. Our secret affair had led to this very situation. My mother, convinced by her intuition, decided to take matters into her own hands. In a fit of anger, she contacted Mark directly and demanded the truth. To my horror, he confessed to being responsible for my pregnancy, completely disregarding the fact that I was also involved with someone else. Furious beyond measure, she ended the call and slapped me hard across the face, a painful reminder of her disappointment and rage. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to wrap my head around Mark's shocking confession. How could he betray our secret like this? My mind raced, trying to find an explanation for his actions, while simultaneously reassuring myself that it couldn't possibly be true. Determined to clear the air, I reached out to Mark once more and confronted him about his conversation with my mother. "What did you tell her?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger and confusion. "Why would you say that when you know I have a boyfriend?" Mark's response was swift and unexpected. "I didn't mean it like that," he explained calmly. "It's not you who I impregnated, but my girlfriend as well." My jaw dropped in disbelief. He had made another girl pregnant too. Relief washed over me as I realized the truth behind his confession. It wasn't a deliberate act of betrayal. It was just a case of unfortunate timing and multiple relationships colliding. I immediately called Mark back to set things straight with my mother, making sure she understood the situation fully. To my surprise, she believed both him and me, restoring her trust in us once again. The crisis had been averted, but questions still lingered about the whereabouts of my boyfriend. As time went on, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy who looked strikingly similar to our family side. This only fueled speculation about his true paternity, yet no one dared to question it directly. My boyfriend, ever so supportive and loving, embraced the child as his own, completely unaware of the secret we both shared. Life moved forward, and I couldn't be happier with my husband by my side, raising our son together. Despite missing Mark dearly at times, especially those intimate moments we once shared, I knew it was time to move on. It was the right decision for all of us involved, even though it meant giving up something that had brought both pleasure and pain into my life. Mark's path also took an interesting turn. He didn't finish nursing school, but built a successful family business instead. He now has 3 children, all of whom look strikingly similar to him. My husband, on the other hand, is thriving in his career as a high-position nurse, providing for our family with unwavering dedication and love. In retrospect, my journey has been one filled with twists and turns, heartbreak and happiness, passion and regrets. But through it all, I've grown stronger, wiser, and more determined to cherish the life I have built with my husband. Mark will always hold a special place in my heart. He marked my life indelibly. But our secret affair has come to an end, replaced by the joy of raising our son together. The lesson I learned is clear. When you find yourself on the wrong path, it's never too late to turn back and make amends. It may not always be easy, but in the long run, It's worth the struggle to live a life free from the weight of guilt and regret by choosing love, family, and honesty over passion. I have found true happiness and fulfillment. And that's something no secret affair could ever match.